was trying to do it all. And I was trying to do it all without anybody knowing that I was doing it all, that I was a single mom in corporate America, traveling for work, PE backed, right? Fast paced environments. And it got to a point where I landed myself in the hospital, just pure exhaustion.
That's so crazy.
And what was crazy is I was there and I was on my laptop, emailing my boss.
Paula, like that, honestly, I want to be surprised there, but I cannot tell you how many times I've taken my laptop to like urgent care.
Right.
Like I'm going because I'm not feeling well. I have the flu. I have a cold. I'm like, and I'm sitting there on Slack and on email. It's like,
right.
Why do we do that to ourselves? Like, why don't we think it's okay to take the time that we need to take care of ourselves and our health and our families? I think that is wild that we have been so brainwashed into thinking that that is appropriate. Like, to me, that's so inappropriate, but we don't believe that. Welcome to the She's So Sweet podcast, where we interview accomplished women who have worked their way to the C-suite. I'm your host, Kristi Faltorusso, Chief Customer Officer and award-winning customer success executive. I am really, really excited for today's guest. We've got Paula Sobb, who's most recently been the Chief Customer Officer at LifeLoop. But Paula's going to have some really exciting news for us in the coming weeks, which I can't wait to hear and I can't wait to share with everybody. But Paula, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Kristi. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm so thrilled to have you. And I think, as we get into our episode today, it'll become more and more evident to our listeners why I am so excited for today's conversation. I think that you bring so much to the table with regards to female leadership, and I'm so excited to dive right in.
Absolutely. This podcast is long overdue, Kristi. So kudos to you for starting this and having so many amazing women come forward on it. I'm excited to be here.
Listen, we're doing it for our daughters, right?
Yes, absolutely we are.
So I can't think of a better mission behind this is to inspire and empower our future leaders, because that's what they're all going to be.
They are. They're amazing young women already.
All right. Well, listen, before we get into things, I would love for you to just kind of formally introduce yourself, tell folks a little bit about your background, and then we're going to get into it.
Sure. So Paula Sobb, I have been in the Atlanta, Georgia area for about 27 years. I came here right out of college, but I was born and raised a Midwest girl out in the cornfields. And I went to school. I started off in Mobile, Alabama, a little tiny Jesuit school down there called Spring Hill College in Mobile. And I played golf in high school for a couple of years, and I wanted to play in college. And at the time, there weren't a lot of women golfers. Women golf was not a prominent sport. I'm aging myself there, Kristi. But, and so I went down there. I went to play golf. Absolutely loved the Deep South. It was a complete culture immersion of a just totally different way of living, close to the beach and close to New Orleans. So that was nice as well. But then I ended up transferring to LSU in my junior year and graduated from LSU and then moved here to Atlanta afterwards and started my career right after graduation. Went into sales and then CS and had some entrepreneur opportunities mixed in there as well.
I love that. So I have to ask, because my husband and I are big Alabama football fans. Did you go a lot of games when you were at LSU?
We did go to a lot of games. They were a lot of fun. And, I do hold a grudge against Nick for leaving us at LSU, but hey, I get it. We all have to maximize our opportunities, right?
Absolutely. It's so funny. My husband and I, neither of us went to Alabama, because I think that's the funny thing. But as far as college football goes, we are like big Alabama fans. And it's funny because Saturday football has become bigger in this house than Sunday football. And I think that says a lot. Yes.
We watch a lot of SEC football around here. So I have a stepson that graduated from UGA, a nephew there, and one is a freshman in college now, and my daughter on the way. So we watch a lot of college football as well.
I love it. All right. Well, listen, I ask everybody this, and you know this because you've listened to some of these episodes, but when you think back to your younger self, right? You're a little girl. What did you think you were going to be when you grew up? Like, what were your career aspirations?
Well, I thought for sure I was going to be a veterinarian because I loved animals. I was one of those little kids that brought home all the strays or any dog not on a leash. I brought it home. And so when I got into high school, I actually did an internship with a friend of the family, and they had a veterinarian clinic. And Kristi, I only lasted 3 days. And on day 3, this woman brought in her golden retriever, and it was time to say goodbye.
Oh.
And I couldn't handle the sadness of it. So I said, this isn't quite for me. I'm going to have to explore other options for sure. But I could have sworn.
I mean, I can't think of a bigger reason or something to deter me from wanting to be a veterinarian, because I don't think that it wouldn't be any of the, like, the blood, or it wouldn't be anything like that, or it would be the end, right? Like, I could never with animals. Oh gosh. It's like, it's the thing that consumes me the most on TikTok is like when people are like talking about their pets that have passed, and I'm like scrolling through and I'm just sobbing and I'm in tears. I'm like, this is horrible. So I can definitely relate.
Yep. We have 2 fur babies, 2 little French bulldogs. We got a puppy about 8 months ago, and he's been quite an adventure. He's already had a broken leg, and it's like going back to having a newborn again. But they're amazing. We love animals around here.
I wish I could get a second. Like that would literally end my marriage if I added any more. I have 1 dog, and like that is a battle in this house. And she's been with us for 4 years, and even still, like every day is a fight with me and my husband. So no more pets for me right now. But okay, all right. Enough on the animals. Although that could probably be its own podcast. I want to spend time talking about your career journey and some of the things that led you to where you are, because you have quite a remarkable journey to share with us today. So why don't we start back, right? Like, I love to just dig in with like pivotal moments and decisions. And so let's just think back to super early in your career. When you think about your journey, what were some of these big like the moments or decisions that you had to make along the way that you feel like contributed to your overall success?
Absolutely. So, Kristi, one of my favorite quotes is, "Life is not a destination, it's a journey." And I truly feel that my career has been a journey. There's never been like, I've gotten to this point and this is what I'm going to stay and do. It's been quite an adventure. So right out of college, I started in sales. My dad worked at IBM. My brother worked at IBM. And so I interviewed with IBM, and I was going to go to work for them. And when I graduated, IBM was going through a lot of changes at the time, and I kept waiting and going through the interview process, and it just wasn't happening. So I moved to Atlanta, left Baton Rouge, moved to Atlanta, and I opened the newspaper, because at that time, we didn't have LinkedIn to look for job postings. And I started circling jobs in the paper, and I found this medical sales position. And so I went into medical sales, really loved everything, accelerated, hit my numbers, was always very proud. I'm a very goal-oriented type of person. And so I did really, really well there, and I was promoted and had my own territory within my first 6 months of being there. And so I was off and running in sales for a long time. And then I moved into technology from there, and came across a company called Authoria, and they did human capital management software. And I was actually referred to them by my brother at the time. My brother and I were only 2 years apart. He's 2 years older than I am, so we're pretty close. And he said, "Hey, Paula, they have this really cool team that they just started here." And at this point in my life, Kristi, I was starting to think about, I was in my late 20s, I wanted to get married, maybe have children, and the sales lifestyle just wasn't really conducive to that entirely. And so he said, "I think you would really like this team. We're calling it, a customer account management team." And he said, "You should come and talk to them. They don't travel as much, and they're just in charge of the install base and growing it and developing the relationships." And I thought, wow, that sounds kind of like the best of both worlds. And that was in the early 2000s that I did that. And that was technically my foray into customer success. was the only woman, by the way, that I ever worked for or reported into. Her name was Jan Howard, and I owe it to her because she was truly so forward thinking when it came to this role of customer success, which we were still calling account management back then. Absolutely loved it, fell in love with it, but I did end up getting married. And I did get married a little bit later, so I was almost in my 30s, and my career was going really, really well. And decided, okay, we'll have kids. We'll start with one and see how that goes. And I did. And I worked through both of my pregnancies because I was terrified that if I took a step back, if I took any time out of my career, I had worked so hard to get to where I was, that I might not be able to pick back up where I left off. And so I worked through both of my pregnancies. I went right back to work. I hired a nanny to help me raise my kids because at the time, my husband at the time was working, traveling internationally. So he was not around a lot. And I did that for several years and just got to a point where I was getting burnt out. I just couldn't keep up raising 2 children with a husband that traveled a lot, plus the demands of my career. And I felt like I was starting to miss out a lot on my children's lives. So I was faced with a tough decision. And, we all say, you can have it all. Well, I don't think you can have it all. And I experienced that. You can have it all, but not all at the same time. And so I had to make a decision at that time. What did I want to have at that time? And at that time I said, okay, I want to be a mom. And that was a very pivotal point in time for me because I was at the highlight of my career and I took a step back. And within months, Kristi, of leaving corporate America and immersing myself in this stay-at-home mom world of playdates and carpooling and birthday parties and kids everywhere and animals, right? And it was just this completely different world that I just hadn't been exposed to. And so I did enjoy the time. I picked up golf again and started playing a little bit of golf. So that was nice, but I was really uneasy. I wasn't using my skills. I felt like I was, I wanted more. I just wanted more. And, so as a result of spending so much time with children coming out of corporate America and their parents, I was getting a little frustrated. I thought, boy, these kids don't have any communication skills. They have terrible manners. They don't know how to make eye contact. They can't shake. Of course, I have these expectations of 30-year-olds. I'm like, they don't even know how to cut their food. These kids are going to be utter failures in life. I need to do something about this. And so I started a children's etiquette business out of my house, running it out of my house. And still to this day, my kids, my nieces and nephews, they'll all laugh. It was called Peachtree Etiquette. And, I made them all attend and they were just less than thrilled, let me tell you. But I had an absolute blast. And I did Peachtree Etiquette for almost 7 years and it exploded. And within 2 years of teaching the children, which was very, that was stretching for me because I was used to being with adults. I opened up a second part of my business and it was around corporate etiquette training because what happened is we would train, the kids would come to class for 4 or 5 weeks at a time. And at the end, we would invite the parents to come and see what the children had learned. Well, all the parents were in corporate America and they would watch and see what their children had learned around, manners, please, thank you, how to eat, eye contact, shake hands. And they would say, we need this. I need you to come to our office and teach these skills to our new hires coming out of college. And so I opened up a second division and then word spread quickly. I ended up doing 3 reality TV shows during those years. The T.I. and Tiny show on MTV, Pretty Wicked Moms on Lifetime, and
Oh my goodness.
King of Queens. It was so fun. I had so much fun doing it, and I hired a woman to come in and teach the children and do that part. And then it's funny how life just can turn in a moment's time. And at the time, my marriage was struggling. And so I ended up filing for divorce. And within days, also found out that I had stage 1 melanoma. And so I had some decisions to make after 7 years of running my own business. And again, I was at the pinnacle, because if you know any entrepreneurs or people that have started their own business, most of them will tell you that 7-year mark is the big year. That's where you really start making a profit and things go well. So I was at my 7-year mark, and I had to make a decision. I needed health care because I had cancer, and I needed to go up to Cleveland Clinic for surgery. Yeah. So I closed up shop, and I went up to Ohio, stayed with my parents. I did my surgery there. I'm completely healthy and in remission now. So it was great. But needed healthcare going forward, because all my healthcare was, provided by my husband at the time. And so I went back into corporate America. And when I did, I wanted to go back into customer success. There was no doubt. But it was also another turning point, right? So having gone through divorce, gone through cancer, now coming back into corporate America as a single mom with an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old that has been out of corporate America for 7 years. And that was 10 years ago, Kristi. I went back into customer success as an individual contributor. And I double timed it with everything. I worked really, really hard. And my kids grew up a little faster than probably most 8 and 10-year-olds. They became very, very self-sufficient. I would, get up at 7 a.m. I'd get up at 4 a.m. I'd be on the 7 a.m. flight to Manhattan, because that's where a lot of my customers were. I'd see 3 customers and I'd be home at 11. And I did that for years and years and years, right? And tried to balance that type of schedule. I was working for a Silicon Valley-based company, private equity backed. We all know the commitments there. And it was a lot of hard work, a lot of personal sacrifice that went into it. I'm so thankful, though. I had a village. You learn to find, as a single mom in corporate America, you learn to find out, who can you carpool with. You're not always the mom. When the volunteer lists come out, my kids knew that I was not going to be the mom volunteering at school, right? So a lot of that has changed, though, Kristi, I will say, over the last 10 years. And even as a leader, as a manager now, I am very insistent with the people that I work with that are on my teams to say, take time, right? Pick a few days, whatever, to go have lunch with your kids at school, because I know what it was like. And this was the days before COVID, where you kind of had to you felt like you had to hide, especially as a woman, that you had this family life. And I remember,
because we're not supposed to have a life outside of our corporate lives, because the men don't have lives outside the corporate lives. You don't hear them talking about pickup and daycare and lunches and PTA and gift shops and all this stuff. You don't ever hear that conversation coming up. So gosh forbid we have that dialogue.
That's right. You're exactly right. And I thought, well, and because I was in technology, it was primarily male dominated that I worked with. And to your point, I couldn't be the one person on the team that had to do carpool or, go have lunch with my kid. That just wasn't. Now, I will say it's one of the silver linings that I think came out of COVID was this acceptance that we all have families at home, right? And they're going to be in our cameras. But before then, I remember picking my kids up from school on the days where maybe my nanny or my babysitter wasn't available, and they'd go to get in the car and they're like, shh, shh, don't talk. No, I'm on a call. Right. And yeah. And of course, now so much of that has changed. We'll schedule a conference call and we'll tell people, well, yeah, I'm going to be in the pickup line or the carpool line.
Right.
But for a long time, when I was really trying to get my career back up and running, that wasn't the case. It wasn't like it is now. It was very different.
No, but that's also the importance of having female leaders in organizations, right? The diversification of just into genders. We won't even get into all of the diversity, but like even just focusing on the gender, right? It's important that other female leaders are in these roles because we are the ones evangelizing for this, right? We're the ones fighting for it. We're the ones saying it's okay. We're the ones encouraging our teams to step out. I'll tell you something. And you and I've shared this story with you, but we talked about this. My career, like I didn't start in tech and specifically in customer success and SaaS companies until I was 30, right? So the first decade of my career was in marketing, and that was a whole nother challenge that I had to navigate. But when I got into tech, the pace of operation was so different, right? I wasn't working 9 to 5 anymore. Now you're working like I had teams in India and I had teams in Australia and I'm working all hours. I mean, I was up at 6 o'clock in the morning on calls. I was on calls at midnight. And so there was just no way for me to figure out how to build a family into that. Right. And so many of us are faced with making the decision, right? Like, can I do both? And like you hit the nail on the head when you said, like, you can have it all, but unfortunately it's not probably going to be all at once. Right. And you've got to kind of pick and choose, and that's okay. And if you choose one thing, it doesn't mean that like you can't rebound. I mean, like, I think your story is a perfect, beautiful testament to being able to say, like, listen, there's a season for everything. And there was a time where you had to prioritize raising young children and knew it was not conducive of your life at home to do both of those things, have a high pressure, high velocity career at the same time when you're raising toddlers who need you. And I think, it's important for women to recognize that. Like, it's okay to say, I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to go home. I'm going to do what I have to do there. And then I'm going to come back to work. But also to recognize you can come back. You're not going to be set back 100 years. You don't necessarily need to start from one. And that's okay, but have those conversations and make sure that you're honest with yourselves and your family as you start to go through that planning process.
Yes. And I want to encourage all women, Kristi, you absolutely can come back, because I did. I came back,
right.
Came back with a vengeance, bigger and stronger and faster. And I fast tracked my career in 10 years faster than probably what most people do in 20. But that's also the beauty of customer success, because it's such a fast growing profession, right? That's growing in popularity. It's so essential to SaaS business now that it has, I feel like, it's very much a female dominated industry now, which is nice to see as well. But, and I think a lot of that comes from, it being, in our sweet spot, what we're good at. But at the same time, we have found this opportunity as women to have this profession that's growing at warp speed. We interjected ourselves quickly into it. It wasn't kind of, this profession that had been in place forever. It was new, and we jumped into it quickly and we dominated it quickly, which is exciting to see. I was just, last month, I was up in New York for the Women in Customer Success event.
Yep.
It was amazing. And I was so floored at how many women were there and the executives, and seeing them build each other up and get on stage together, and just the empowerment that was happening at that event was phenomenal. And I'm so excited to see that. I'm excited for our daughters' futures to see that happening out in corporate America and in our profession, because that was one of the biggest challenges the whole time I was trying to build my career, is in the early 2000s, there wasn't customer success platforms, CSPs. There were no gain sites or churn zeros. And there wasn't the Kristis out there that were bringing all these podcasts and resources together. You had to really scramble to find resources. And it was a lot of trial and error early on.
I mean, listen, it's the beauty of customer success. And for those of us who were able to jump on it early, I think we've all ridden that wave to our career advantages, right? Like, I think a lot of us, it accelerated our careers because it was something that we were able to get into at the stage that we did, which broke in a lot of, females into tech. I mean, I don't know that I would have found an organic way to break into SaaS. I mean, outside of sales, which I actually think that I would be really good at sales, but outside of sales, I really don't know that I would have had a way to break into tech. And so I think it did give a huge opportunity to a lot of females who were interested in this world, but didn't really have an organic way to get in, right? Based off of previous experiences or their current skills. And so I think that it's really done a huge service to women in tech, is like having this entryway. Because I do agree. Like, I think there's something somewhat natural to women in understanding like how to support a customer, right? And like how to really commit to their success and how to lean into the empathy, but the strategic side of it as well. So I'm grateful for the opportunities that customer success has given us. The She's So Sweet podcast is brought to you by Client Success. Client Success is an all-in-one customer success platform to help post-sale implementation and success teams manage customers from new to renew. Through an industry-leading platform approach, Client Success gives businesses an in-depth view into customer health, product usage trends, along with churn and risk data so that your team can not only retain customers, but help them grow as well. Whether it's managing customer onboarding workflows in shared portals, building custom health scores, tracking sentiment with NPS surveys, or doing more with less through AI and automations, Client Success gives customer success professionals a true one-stop platform to manage all aspects of the customer journey. To learn more about the industry's fastest to implement customer success platform, visit www.clientsuccess.com. That's Client Success. Simple, powerful customer success. I do want to double click into something though, because you hit on something that I thought was really interesting. When you referenced your career history, you talked about only having one female leader. Now, again, I'm not here to discuss how old you are or how many years in your career you've had, but even if you're my age, right, that's a lot of years, right? Probably a lot of different companies. Only one female leader that you ever have. Talk to me about what that experience was like for you early, because I know for me, one of the things that I really struggled with was not having any females to emulate, not knowing what good female leadership could look like, not having a mentor, not having a guide, not having representation in those rooms, and really struggling with that personally because I knew I wanted to be successful. But honestly, I had no idea what success for me could look like because I just didn't see it. So talk to me about your experiences kind of growing up, only seeing men as well, or not having the exposure to female leaders.
Absolutely. So I've been working for 27 years. So 27 years ago, and that job was in 2000. Let's see, I was there in 2004, 2002, early 2000s. And Jan was, she was great to work for. Like I said, very inspiring. She really was ahead of her time in thinking about customer success. But once I left there and continued on the path of my career, to your point, I never really had anyone to look to say, as a woman, how do I fit into a management team? How do I fit into a senior leadership team? And how do I fit into an ELT? So as I started progressing into management, I was always the only female manager there. And so you emulate the men, you see what they're doing, but that doesn't quite work because
nobody wants a woman acting like a man, like in a professional setting in that regard, right? Like it doesn't translate well for us.
Exactly. It doesn't. And so then, as I moved into senior leadership again, I was still the only woman at the table. And then it wasn't until I went to LifeLoop, where we've had the most diverse ELT team, and there were other women leaders, and we had a great diversity in our team, amazing group of folks that I worked with. But I always struggled, and I wanted a mentor, and I never really knew where to look to find a good female mentor. Or I would reach out and I would have a call with them, and it would never really go anywhere. So it was always really difficult to say, okay, I want to do this mentorship. I want other female leaders, but I felt like the female leaders that were out there were untouchables to me. They were so far advanced in their career. Like, I knew a couple other women that were C-level and or president level for big corporations that I had met, but they were fast tracking. They were focused on their own careers. They weren't really interested or had time to sit down and teach me the ways, or, be my Obi-Wan, so to speak. And so I just did, you do the best you can as a female leader. And it's nice that to see the evolution over the last couple of decades of, women like yourself that are starting these podcasts and groups, and women in CS. And I love to see all of this coming forward, but it was definitely a struggle for me, especially once I got into more of management. When you're an individual contributor, you kind of have your head down and you just want to achieve and do well. But once you start getting in management, it can be very lonely to be the only woman at the table.
What were some of the challenges you were faced with, right? Because I know that I had a lot of interesting experiences. I'll share one little story, and I won't even reference the time of my life that this took place so that no one can go and look at my LinkedIn and try to figure out what company this happened at. But I had a leader at one of the companies I was at. I was an early manager, so not a director level, but like that first level entry into management. And I had a gentleman who was maybe a level or two higher than me. Maybe he was like a director or senior director. Tell me that it wasn't a good idea to have pictures of my family at my desk.
Wow.
Because it showed that I wasn't focused.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's...
Can you imagine somebody coming up to you and telling you that you shouldn't have pictures of your family at your desk because of what that signals to the other leaders who we're all men?
Yeah. Yeah. That's so hard. Yeah.
So, I'd love to hear from you. Did you have to overcome, or what were some of the things that you navigated when you found yourself in these situations?
I navigated constant exhaustion, Kristi, because I was trying to do it all, and I was trying to do it all without anybody knowing that I was doing it all, that I was a single mom in corporate America, traveling for work, PE-backed, right, fast-paced environments. And it got to a point where I landed myself in the hospital, just pure exhaustion.
That's so crazy.
And what was crazy is I was there and I was on my laptop, emailing my boss.
Paula, that, honestly, I want to be surprised there, but I cannot tell you how many times I've taken my laptop to urgent care.
Right.
I'm going because I'm not feeling well. I have the flu. I have a cold. And I'm sitting there on Slack and on email. It's right. Why do we do that to ourselves? Why don't we think it's okay to take the time that we need to take care of ourselves and our health and our families? I think that is wild that we have been so brainwashed into thinking that is appropriate. To me, that's so inappropriate, but we don't believe that.
Well, and we know now, and I even know now through my own body, my own health and wellness that I do now, that we perform better when we take care of ourselves, right? When we give our bodies time to heal. When we're sick, heal, right? When you're trying to do all of it while you're healing, you're not performing at your best. And I think that applies to taking time off and carving time out for yourself. But again, a lot of that has changed, and that was being emulated, right, for us, because we didn't have other women in our, that we were reporting up to, look, nobody was giving us permission to say, hey, Paula, it's okay to take 20 minutes out of your day, go to the bus stop, grab your kids and come back. Because at the end of the day, I always got my work done. I always made my numbers. And, whether it meant I stayed up until midnight to get caught up because I had to do other things or take my kids to urgent care, then, that's what I did. And so I think, those were real challenges, but I'm happy to say that in the last couple of companies that I've worked at, I've seen a complete change in all of that.
Well, I love to hear that. And so I think this is a good way for us to segue from some of the what seems like doom and gloom to maybe some of the highlights in your career, because obviously you didn't get to where you are without some success. So let's reflect back for a moment, because I feel like women don't do this enough, but we don't celebrate and acknowledge all of the wonderful things that we have done. I think sometimes it's easier. Like if somebody asked me, okay, share a failure, I have 100 of those. Somebody said share a success, I'm like, have to think for 10 minutes. But what are some of those moments that you reflect back on? You're like, wow, like that is a proud moment for me, or that was a huge accomplishment, or something I feel really good about that drove success for me or the people around me. Like, what are some of those stories?
Yeah, I mean, very early on in my sales career, I always did really well and hit my numbers and overachieved. And so I was promoted and moved through the ranks pretty quickly there. For me, running my own business and being on national TV, and those were highlights as well. Just knowing that whole environment, but then from a corporate America standpoint, really coming in to a Silicon Valley startup as an individual contributor, and then moving into management and senior management and rising up through the ranks there. That was a pinnacle moment for my career, and also for me growing in customer success as well. And then, moving into senior leadership, working for a global company, that was also very pivotal because it took me into that senior leadership position. Although that was a really hard time in my career, Kristi, because I started that job literally at the onset of COVID. So I was hired. And when I was hired, 2 weeks later, the world shut down. So I had this team of customer success. I was supposed to be coming in and, merging teams and building out customer success and doing all these important things while the world was shutting down and was, very distracted by COVID, needless to say. So that was very challenging to find out how do we keep things moving forward, and how are you a senior leader at a brand new company where you know nobody and you don't get to meet them for 2 years. So that was interesting. And then I would say most recently, Kristi, my time at LifeLoop, the 2 years we were there, we had a transformational project there, really bringing two companies together, completely transforming customer success, support, onboarding, education, enablement. And we accomplished so much in those 2 years. We truly transformed the function and professionalized the team, brought so much skill and achievement into those teams. And when I announced to my organization, I had 5 teams at LifeLoop, and when I announced that I was leaving, I was overwhelmed by the outpouring of notes from people, everybody in my team, in my organization. I'm getting choked up a little bit around how impactful my time was there for them personally, how much they learned with me coming in, and how their careers have grown and how they looked up to me. So many young women at this company, we had lots of young women, so many of them said, thanks for being a great role model. And I will say that is my greatest achievement to date in my career.
Yeah, I could cry.
Yeah. To have almost every single person, write me a personal note or reach out to me or call me and say, thank you. You truly impacted my, it wasn't the goals that we achieved. All of that is great because results are important. We have to have them. But what was really amazing was to hear people say, thank you.
I mean, that's a huge testament to the impact you've clearly had there in the time that you were there. I mean, and really, really impressive. I was like a little choked up because I'm thinking back and I'm like, I have actually had females where I have felt that of them. And I always hope that, like, sometimes you hear it, sometimes you don't, that you always want to be able to have that level of impact on people. Because to your point, yes, business impact is one thing, but it doesn't mean as much when you have actually impacted someone's life and someone's career and, given them, something that they could aspire to be and someone that they can look up to. Like that is, I think, the best testament to an amazing leader. And so I think this is a lot about the work that you did there. Now, obviously, we've talked about this is like empowerment of women is something important to you. And you talked about like some of the stuff that you did at LifeLoop, obviously that you were able to impact these women, but I'm a big believer that we are only as good as we are together, right? And so the empowerment of women, and so that the quote, empowered women empower women, I love that so much. So when you think about, even your future, forget even what you've already done, but like, what are ways that you aspire to show up to continue to empower women?
Well, just today as an example, Kristi, coming here and telling my story. I mean, I wouldn't have thought about sharing my story to the extent that I did today and the challenges around being a woman and a single mom. And I just wouldn't have done this 5 years ago, 10, and certainly not 10 years ago. So I think just coming in onto a show like this and talking about it and letting other women know, like we all have different struggles or we're going through it. I also, for me, this year is my personal goal to get involved in mentoring young women. So looking for some groups that I can get involved in, and then continuing in my professional career to really offer it up at wherever I land next. I know that I've had young women at LifeLoop come to me and say, hey, can I just put a recurring call on your meeting every month and just touch base? And I said, absolutely. So just doing more of that, letting the women know that you work with, that you're available to them, whether it's talking strategy, helping them build their careers, or just, talking about some of the challenges we might be having at home while working. And then really, for me, I want to see more of this coming into our schools and the young girls' lives, like our daughter's age.
Yeah.
To make sure that, while they're in high school, while they're in elementary school, that they continue to be empowered and know that other women are there to support them.
I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. And if you didn't mention your daughter, I would have brought her up because I think yes, we want to help everybody who's already kind of navigating their professional journey and we want to see people continue to grow, but it extends so far beyond that, right? And I told you the reason why I started this podcast is because my daughter and you and I share similar stories at similar ages, and both of our girls are going to go off and do amazing things. I'm confident of that. And it's like, I want to make sure that the future generations recognize that as women, as young women, as professionals, they can do whatever they want.
Absolutely. Well, and that's, we're leading by example, right? I think the best thing is, leading by example, walk the walk, not necessarily, just talk the talk. We can all talk about it, but to your point, what are we doing about it? What other actions can we take?
Well, I love that. All right. Well, listen, I know that we're coming to an end of our episode today, but I want you to be able to share one piece of advice. So what's the one thing you want to leave our listeners with today?
Gosh, I think it is, define what success is to you and go after it. Don't let anybody tell you what success is. And don't be afraid to take chances and really put yourself out there, because everybody's journey is different, and how they arrive to that point that makes them happy. And so, don't limit yourself. Make sure you define what success is for you, and then just go get it.
I love that. I think that's an amazing way for us to end this episode. So Paula, I just want to thank you so much for your time today. And obviously your vulnerability and your humility and just being able to be so open with us today. I think that it is so important for women to hear, that all journeys look a little different. We're all navigating stuff personally and professionally, and that's okay. But I think the thing that stands out about your story that I love so, so much is that it's okay to take a step back and recognize that at any point you can jump right back to where you were, right? It's not a setback. Your career is not going to immediately unfold in front of you. And so, prioritize what's important to you in the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, Kristi.
All right. Well, listen, thank you all so much for listening to our episode today. If you enjoyed this, please rate and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, subscribe on YouTube, and connect with me on LinkedIn. Until next time, we'll see you soon. Hi, guys. I want to share a bit about an organization that I support called Wednesday Women. They're on a mission to increase the visibility of executive women leaders that you should know, learn from, and be inspired by. On LinkedIn, they share the profile of 2 amazing women each week, on Wednesdays, of course. And now just imagine if we all followed, amplified, and nominated the women that we want to see more of. Their initiative provides examples of women CEOs, founders, sales executives, technical leaders, and so many more. By supporting Wednesday Women, you'll see more of these professionals in your social feeds, of course, but also on stages, podcasts, and panels. If you're interested in learning more and supporting their initiative, head over to www.wednesdaywomen.org or follow them on LinkedIn.